Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And that makes me Brian Michael. Oh, we've got an exciting show for you today. Not only do we have a comic book movie, yay, 3 foreign language film movies, yay! Yeah, and then a buried treasure. Woo, exciting. So a movie that you're not going to be able to find. So we're going to start off with our first film, which is The Joker. This stars Joaquin Phoenix as the title character. Actually, he plays Arthur Fleck, who is a down on his luck comedian who's also a for-hire clown who goes into hard times and finds himself becoming, well, the title character of the Joker. He's a mentally unstable person. Actually, this film tackles several different topics. One of them being that he is someone who requires a lot of help, 7 or 9 medications, and because of budget cutbacks, he no longer has that. Some violence happens in his life where he finds himself defending himself with a gun, and slowly makes his way, what you would think would be a downward spiral, but for the Joker, I guess that would be an upward spiral. It's a very controversial film. I feel like I've already reviewed it like 50 different times because I think I've talked to about everybody who has seen it except for the person to my right. And I'm just excited to hear how much she hates this film. I actually think this is a great film. I think this is a wonderful film.
Great?
I think that Todd
Brian.
Phillips is going for Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. And you know what? If you're going to go for anything, I don't think that's a bad thing to aspire for. Here is a film that he's making a small character study under the guise of a comic book character and actually makes it fit really well. And as a comic book movie, I think it works really well. And as a character piece, I think it works really well. And I've had so many different conversations with people who loved it and who didn't like it, and it just furthers
And
my
I'm somewhere in the
feelings for
middle,
it.
so I'm giving it 2.5 stars.
That's not in the middle.
It is in the middle, between 4. It's basically 2.5. It's in that range.
That's what you give
there's
every
so
comic book
much
movie.
controversy. Well, no, some of them are much worse. So I would say that is a compliment for the Joker. It's not as bad as some of the ones I've seen in the past few years. This problem, and I don't even think, forget comic book movie or whatever, even as a character study, I don't think it works entirely. I think Joaquin Phoenix, this whole movie is on his shoulders, unfortunately, because
And if
he's not
great performance is in every screen, every frame of the movie.
We've seen it with Meryl Streep. It's possible to do. It's possible to be a great
make
actor
bad
and be
movies.
excellent in the movie,
Yeah.
but still have the script and the directing fail you. And the problem is Joaquin Phoenix is holding this whole movie on his shoulders, but he's not directed properly. He has a director who doesn't know what to do with him, and so he ends up doing a lot of. I mean, how many times have we seen him? Do we see him dance? He dances in the bathroom. He dances in the living room. He dances on the steps. He dances in another spot. It's like when he doesn't know what to do because he's not being directed in this character study, he dances.
No, I think that's a part
it's
of
a
his
story.
character.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a problem with the story, which is that it doesn't give us enough of enough background of the Joker. We know all the things you mentioned, but there isn't enough there. And to compare it to Kings of Comedy and Taxi Driver is an insult to those movies. It's like that, watered down times a million. But his performance is really, really great, and I thought the visuals were really good. I thought the cinematography.
So it looks
was
really
good.
good. The main character that's in
But the
every screen of it
directing
is a great performance.
I didn't say the character was good. I said his
No,
performance.
his performance
is
is
good.
really
Yeah,
good.
but the
Yeah.
story, the writing, and the directing fall short. And the writing falls short because there's so many opportunities to bring some of the people that are surrounding the Joker and make those interesting characters. The mother, or Zazie Beetz as the possible love interest / neighbor. Even bringing in a Bruce Wayne or these other characters. But instead, it's just entirely the Joaquin Phoenix show.
Yeah, it's called The Joker.
But if you think about it, think about Taxi Driver, the movies you just mentioned. There were other interesting characters in those movies.
Not really. Not in Taxi Driver. There was pretty much just Travis Bickle and a little bit of Sybil Shepherd and a moment of Albert Brooks.
Foster.
And Jodie Foster. Yeah,
you just named 4 characters, literally.
So there's his mother. There's Thomas Wayne.
None of those are interesting characters. They give them nothing to do with.
Good.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I actually really like the fact the way they were able to tie in the Thomas Wayne character. I thought that was really smart. The way they were able to pull him into it, and I liked that. I didn't mind. I didn't have to have all these different characters in there. I wanted to watch The Joker. It's called The Joker, and I thought it was an interesting character study on him. And there's a great twist in this film that I thought that was really good, because up to that point I thought some things weren't connecting, and then they had the twist of it, which I thought made complete sense. This is somebody who's mentally disabled and has some issues, and I felt really sorry for him up to a point, because it was just like, here's a guy that really clearly needs help. And so they had that commentary on it, which I thought was, which is a lot for a comic book movie. Certainly, it's certainly one that's for a mainstream film. So I really liked that. And then the way that it was able to tie into the Batman pathos, which I was like, gosh, do we really need to see these scenes again? But I really appreciate how that was how that happened. It paid a lot of homage to previous films. I thought they did a really good job of that. And I just thought that his different ways of him finally literally coming out of his shell was with the dance. There's a big difference. If you had all 4 or 5 of those dances put next to one another, you would see the evolution of where he becomes the Joker. And at the very end, when he actually does, and curtains open and he's the Joker, my jaw hit the floor because it was like, wow. Because up to that point,
he did the exact same dance he did in the bathroom, actually.
Up to that point, I did not believe that. I didn't really believe him to be the Joker. I felt like I just didn't see the confidence, even though this is an origin story. But when those curtains opened up and he walked out, I went, and there he is. And I'm terrified at this point in time because I don't know what's going to happen. And I loved that about that. And so I thought it was really, really cool. No, because you don't know enough about the Joker. So, but yeah, that was interesting to see what was going to be happening. Because he had a plan.
I do know about what happens to the Joker, but anyway, I knew exactly what was going to happen at the end.
No, you didn't.
That he was going to end up in a mental what was going to happen to him?
No, I'm talking about when those curtains opened up, what was going to happen in that scene, how that scene was going to end. There was.
You mean on the talk show?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I knew that was happening.
Oh, you knew that was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, there were other things that have also happened in previous Joker films of what he's.
Because if he did the thing he rehearsed, then there would be no more movie.
But this is supposed to be technically a one-off, and I thought that was really interesting too because that put a lot of tension in there. I thought it was really.
They did like sing De Niro on screen for like 5 minutes, but he wasn't really given much to do either. But it's not a so much of the buzz about this movie has been how it's either a masterpiece or it's dangerous, which I don't agree with because it'd have to be more interesting to be dangerous. And the worst thing ever. I do find in the kind of the allegation or the insinuation, but it is a fictional film, so you have to kind of let that go to a certain degree, that if, mentally ill people, all of a sudden, if someone has mental health issues, if they're off the meds, they're going to go out and, commit manslaughter.
7. Yeah. He's on 7, Angela.
Doesn't matter.
It's been. He isn't just having a bad day. This is someone who's obviously has issues, has major.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a correlation there.
But it's all a movie about recognition. He's just trying to get noticed, and that's what he talks about. That's what he rants about. His mom is trying to get noticed from the Wayne family because of what she believes, and I love that story with her as well because people are like, well, no, she was delusional. I'm like, was she? Because I thought that was, with enough money, you could prove anyone to be delusional, and I liked that too. There was a lot of different things that kind of intertwined in there. I could easily watch this movie again.
Oh yeah, it was just a little too dark and depressing for me on that. It'd have to be more interesting in order for me to want to watch it again. So I just wasn't interested enough to feel strongly about it either way.
Shocker. So you needed to have Batman show up and fight him or something.
No, I don't know about that, but Joaquin's a very good actor.
He's a fantastic actor. And I thought he was really
He was so much better in the Lynn Ramsey film We Were Never Really Here when he was playing a somewhat similar character, but more on the good side of justice. Yeah. That movie made my top 10, by the way, so definitely check that one out if you like Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, he was wonderful in that. It was a great movie.
Yep,
it was good.
4 stars.
So we'll move on to our next movie.
Are you giving Joker 4 stars?
Yes, I am giving Joker 4 stars. What do you think of that? So we're going to move on to our next movie, which is Manos, that we're actually going to look at a clip right now. Okay, so that clip you saw was from Manos. This is directed by Alejandro Landes. This is a director I'm not very familiar with. And this is an absolutely incredible and powerful film. 2 in 1 week, and this is certainly a 4-star review film for me. This tells the story of a group of teenagers who are who are guerrilla soldiers, and they are put in the care of a doctor, a hostage, who they have to keep alive and secure. And that's kind of how we're kind of dropped into this film because we're just. Pretty much they're given the hostage, they're given a cow, and they're kind of left alone, and we kind of see them with their own devices and partying and trying to keep her as well as...
There's no backstory given to us, too.
There's nothing in this film. You just kind of, like I said, you're just kind of dropped into this. And then, of course, they have to move. Some other tragedies happen, and then there's some splintering within the group. I don't want to give too much away of this film because, like I said, it was very, very eye-opening and just kind of... it was, homage certainly to Lord of the Flies is there as well, which I kind of thought, well, maybe, and then a pig's head showed up, and I went, oh, and there we go. But it's a brilliant film. It's an incredible looking film. Now, when I say it's an incredible looking film, I'm not saying because everything looks beautiful. When it's cold, I felt cold. When it's hot, it looked hot. It felt hot. When it was dirty and grimy, it looked dirty and grimy. Not everything just had to look beautiful when it's a great cinematography, and I loved that. It looked very realistic, and it really pulled you
Although
in.
some of those scenes with the clouds where they're standing on top of the,
those
are
just
gorgeous,
absolutely
yeah.
breathtaking. And there's very naturalistic performances. Of course, where there's it's a foreign language film, so I don't know if all of the actors are really great at their line delivery, because there's a little bit of a.
I thought they were all great.
Well, but there's a bit of a
Right.
Go between for us, because I don't speak that language. But I thought all the performances that I could see from their physical performances were great.
Right. And Julian Nicholson, an actress we both have liked for a long time since she did Tully. And, I kind of was like, oh, what's happened to her in recent years? And, she's an actress over 40, so she's been mostly doing TV, is given, it's a small but really crucial part. And she's great in this, because we don't even understand her character at first. She's the hostage, but we're like, why do they have her hostage?
Doctora.
Is she important? What's going on? Why was she there? We don't always understand all of that. Yeah, I kind of describe it as Lord of the Flies meets Apocalypse Now a little bit. Parts of it remind me of that, especially the parts where they're in the jungle and they start to lose it a little bit. You kind of feel like the jungle's getting to them a little bit. All of them start to act a little bit crazy, and they're young actors, and I thought they were all really, really good. Moises Heiress, who plays Bigfoot, we've seen him in some other films, and he was the one that I kind of noticed right away. But even the ones I'd never seen before, they all kind of blend seamlessly. And it also reminded me, I was watching some Herzog the other day on Criterion Channel, and there were aspects of it that definitely reminded me of, you're a fan of Werner Herzog movies. I definitely thought of that, this idea of man out in nature and then man becoming beast, and, the difference between man and beast not being all that dissimilar. And so all those elements, and that's a high compliment to say something's like a Herzog film. So I'm super excited. This director, as you mentioned, I don't think has done a lot, and this was definitely the first film of his I've seen, and I look forward to a lot more.
And in the cinematographer, I didn't write the name down, but I love the look of the film, and so I'm certainly looking forward. But he actually had like 50 different side credits, and I hadn't seen any of those.
So I don't know if he's a South American director or just someone that's done, or it's a cinematographer or done other films. But Alejandro Landes, so this is film, I think it was set in Colombia and Ecuador, kind of shot in both areas, but definitely has that kind of that feeling of Lord of the. It almost, it definitely has the Lord of the Flies feeling without feeling like a complete knockoff of that, I guess I would say. Although the part with the pig did.
Well, see, the interesting thing though about Lord of the Flies, and shocker on this one, everybody, hold on to your pearls, fellas. I actually have read the book, and
wow, we can put that notch.
I know, we can write that on there, right? So I'm the expert. But the oh gosh, I want to say William Burroughs. I forget who wrote it. It's not William Burroughs. That's the author had talked about he kept it mainly boys because he didn't want to bring in the girls and bring in other, because then it gets a little extra complicated. Well, here we have that situation where there's boys and girls involved, and of course they're all teens and preteens, and so there's an extra dynamic that's added there.
Right.
There's actually one of the characters that I found really interesting because we started going further along with the character Rambo, and I'm like, that is not a boy. That's a young lady.
Right.
And so I didn't know, again, with this film, not spelling everything out for you, I don't know if that was just because they decided to cast a woman in a male's in a boy's part, or because
she was supposed to be a girl.
I don't know exactly what was going on there, but it added an extra. It just added an extra.
Yeah, you're right. I looked at
IMDb
really too, and it is a female actor playing the character, so that did add another dimension. The fact there's so much ambiguity in this film. If you don't like ambiguity, this is not the movie for you. But we love it, so that's good.
Yeah.
And you are literally. I mean, it feels like you're dropped in by helicopter at the beginning, and it's interesting that the movie ends with a helicopter as well, because you feel like you're kind of dropped in and pulled out.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And you're kind of like, okay, there's so many questions we all had after this movie's over that I felt like it could have been a discussion.
So this is a 4-star film for you. So it better be, because after when the movie was over, I went, well, that was stupid, and you went, what? And I went, I knew she loved it as much as I did, because you had to be. It was so immersive. It was just like, I felt so bad for these kids because they were obviously recruited in, at a very young age. They're not allowed to be children. And that's tough enough as it is. And I know that that's not always the certainly privilege being in this country, but it was so tough seeing that, but them having to make these big decisions, putting all of this responsibility on their shoulders, and you kind of see some of them crumble and crack. That's too hard. But it's such an amazing film. I just absolutely
definitely
loved it.
seek it out. It's showing here locally in Salem.
It's still playing.
Yeah, it's still playing on the big screen. So see it while you can on the big screen, because it's definitely a big screen movie.
Ooh,
so if
please.
you can find it in your local theater. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is Oscar-nominated foreign films. So these are films Brian and I are working through, and they're foreign films that have been nominated for Oscars. Didn't necessarily win, although some of these have. And this one is from 1948, and it is Monsieur Vincent, and it is by Maurice, Cloche. Boy, I'm probably really butchering that. Jeff's going to have to correct me later. It is a biopic about St. Vincent de Paul and his works of charity throughout France. And of course, St. Vincent de Paul, very famous Catholic priest. And what he really became known for and really helped pioneer in the church was works of charity, which today we really associate with the Catholic Church. But back then, it was, as the movie shows, it was actually novel. Back then, the nobles and the church were kind of side by side, and the church, the priests just kind of were embedded with the nobility. And he was the one that said, no, I'm going out to the poor people. I'm going out to the people. I'm going to feed people and clothe them and take care of sick people. And the movie opens where he's going into a town that's ridden by the plague, and he just walks right in, and everyone's kind of freaking out, you know, and
stoning him. They're throwing rocks.
They're literally throwing rocks at him, you know, because he's bringing germs with him from outside, and that was great. And then it kind of builds up as he kind of goes through various things, and it's one of these movies, you know, he's aged sort of poorly, and that happens. The actor,
they put oatmeal on their face.
Yeah, Pierre Fresnay, who plays Vincent de Paul, is a great French actor. Has been in quite a few other films. Because I looked him up because I thought, boy, he looked familiar in this movie, and he was in The Grand Illusion, and Les Corbeaux, the one of the Clouseau films that we've reviewed. So The Raven. So,
what was it called?
Don't knock my French. I never took French. I'm not good at the French language. So, but this was a good biopic. It was not like a 4-star movie, but I enjoyed it.
You know, yeah, this is a wishful film, because I really wished it would have done a little bit more there, because this is such a fascinating character or person or biopic here. This is somebody who's affected millions of lives, you know, since their passing. How many people can actually say that? Whether you're a fan of the church or not, I thought it was very interesting for him to come in and being able to make these changes. And trust me, changes in the Catholic Church don't happen easily. And so I wish we could have seen more of, I mean, certainly we see him being compassionate and him caring, and we see these women that come in and they're like, okay, well, give the money. And then pretty soon they're like, oh, what do I wear when I'm out there feeding the poor? And then pretty soon they're like,
he's getting frustrated with them.
And he gets frustrated and he's going to the next place. I would have seen a lot more connection with some of the people that they were feeding, and seeing that, you know, the changes that he made by, you know, actually recognizing the poor and helping them get back on their feet and feeding them. There's a nun that comes in that people are just like, why isn't she in a convent? It's freaking them out. And I'm like, I would have loved to have watched this character. I'm like, can we follow her a little bit longer?
Yeah, it felt like a little limited in its scope.
We had these long scenes with people. There wasn't enough beds, and I'm like, yeah. Let's get to the people here. And it was just like, I liked the movie, but I just wish there could have been so much more.
Well, yeah, and even showing the impact. I mean, when you read about St. Vincent de Paul, he had this huge impact, and they touch on it for like 2 minutes in the movie, where they have this other priest who comes from another country and says, word is spreading about your deeds, and we're all setting up charities like this. Oh, well, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a huge thing that you set this up, but then it's literally about 2 minutes out of a 2-hour
and so, you know,
movie,
and you know, we've watched a lot of movies, and you know, the Bible epics are the most boring. That's why I keep telling you, could be worse. Bible epics could come back. If you don't like comic book movies, but could be worse. We could watch those long, drawn-out people in Roman gear. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. And here's one that, you know, they actually really had a character that, I would have loved to have seen so much more there. He's a very good actor. It's a very good performance there. But it just felt like you just kind of grazed across the top, and we could have definitely delved much deeper, like they did in The Joker.
Yeah, not. Okay. So we'll move on to the next segment is her fresh picks. These are critically acclaimed films from 2019 that I am making Brian watch. No, Brian and I are wading through so that we can be sort of caught up by the end of the year. We won't be. We'll still be cramming in January. But this film is the Heiresses, and this was one I heard a lot about. Didn't open here in Salem. I don't know if it even opened in Portland. Maybe it did. This is about two women that are partners, Chela and Chiquita, and they are forced to sell off all their possessions. We see this happening at the beginning of the film. Then after Chiquita is imprisoned, Chela starts on the process of self-discovery. She's kind of stayed very removed, and you got the sense maybe let Chiquita maybe take care of her whole life, basically. And then all of a sudden has to figure out how to do things on her own, including... Yeah, she has to get her groove back. That's what the movie's about. So this is a first-time feature, and the reason I want to bring this up is because I loved this movie. I'm giving it 4 stars. It's a film shot in Paraguay, which is not a film we see a lot, a country we see a lot of films from. The lead character of Chela, played by Anna Brun, I thought was a fantastic actress. Because we start the movie and she's kind of watching from a door with the door cracked as her possessions are being sold off by Chiquita, who's the one who takes charge. And she's just this little timid person who's let her life kind of slip through. She's been in the relationship with this woman for 30 years, and they're just kind of plodding along, and then everything disrupts that. And I love movies where all of a sudden something happens, and then people have to, take charge of their lives or, do something. And so it's funny what she does to take charge of her life. So she starts like a sort of taxi service. The one thing she has is this car, and she starts driving other old women around who need rides to places.
She kind of falls into it. They start asking her.
Yeah, it's just a
like,
total
hey, we'll
coincidence.
give you some money for this. And hey, can you do this for my mom? And then you can do this.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I really like that dynamic. And then what's interesting is that Chiquita goes to jail, and all of a sudden she's not going to go to jail, really likes it in jail, and is able to know who this is and who's that is going on, and able to network around. And it was like, what a fascinating couple these two ladies are, who I didn't know were a couple at first. It took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah,
That
it's
wasn't
not
very- I
obvious
was like,
at the
are they
beginning.
sisters? Because they look a lot alike.
I didn't figure
but,
out at first because I thought it's
whichever.
weird that they sleep in the same room and they're sisters because they show them but then you
don't
didn't.
know.
It wasn't clear at first. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then of course she's, the house slowly, everything gets sold out, or it gets sold, and so the house gets more and more empty. And then, but she has a maid. Because you have to have a maid, apparently, which I was like, what is the dumbest
Class
spend of money?
issues,
Yeah, and you got to hold the tray a certain way, and you got to do it
Well,
this
they show
way.
Chiquita
Good
showing the maid. She hired this
heavens.
new maid who's probably cheaper, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
and she paid her up front for the time she was in prison. And I assumed it was like, oh, well, Shayla's not going to be able to take care of herself, so I've paid you to take care of her while I'm in prison. That's how much this woman needed people to take care of her. So I love that by the end she's become this different person. She figured it out. It's sort of like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like rich people can do things for themselves, but that's sort of the idea of the movie. But the characters are more sympathetic
Poor
than
upper
that.
class.
The poor
Oh,
upper
the
class.
upper class.
But
She
the
said people
characters
do
are more
things for her.
sympathetic.
Hold
And
on.
you don't see that many movies about middle-aged women that aren't, neither of these women are, I mean, they're nice-looking women, but they're not supermodels. They're regular-looking people, and I liked that too.
Was this movie dark though? That's the thing I didn't have a hard time with. I had the hardest time seeing
your
this
screen?
movie.
Really?
Yes, I felt like
Adjust
it
your
was
setting. It
just
was
like,
fine on
what
my
is
TV.
going on? It was really, really dark. And several times it was kind of like, what are we? When she talked about her at the beginning peeking through the glass, how I felt through the whole movie, that it was just really, really
That's
dark.
weird. Yeah, I thought it didn't
Because
have any
I thought that
problem.
when you would see the house, obviously they're trying to save electricity, but I would think that you would have the house slightly, lit up bright, so that way you could see the differences in the house, how things have been sold out and how things have been changing, and there's missing paintings on the wall and portraits on the wall. It was just really, really hard to see in this. I enjoyed this movie very much. I didn't love it.
You didn't love it like I did. Okay, I'm
No.
giving 4 stars. So I assume
Yeah.
it's 3 stars for you based on your review.
Yeah.
3.5.
3.5.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll move on.
Wow. So you gave out 2 4-star films.
I know,
See,
so
this
did
is the
you.
time of the year. See, yeah,
Although
you
this
always
movie
panic.
didn't have anything.
This is the time of year.
Well,
you always start
this
to
movie
panic.
came out a long time ago, wherever it came out in this big city. So anyway,
Yeah.
we have
Okay.
one more. We have 2 minutes.
Oh,
So
here we go.
let's speed through
Okay.
this one.
All right. So we have our buried treasure, which is Marat Sade, which is directed by Peter Brooks, which is a play within a play. It's the persecution and assassination of Jean Paul, which is performed by the inmates of an asylum, directed by the Marquis de Sade. Huh. And
that
needless
pretty
to
much
say-
explains the movie.
Boy, needless to say, I was like, oh, not another stage play that's filmed. I hate these kind. But even though I had to open things up and be like, what's going on here? Because everyone's talking in its old English, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know, unless you stop every 5 minutes, which I kind of had to do. I liked this movie. I can give it
really?
a recommendation because of the energy that they had in it, and because there's some really good actors in it, some faces
There are
I was
good
able to
actors,
recognize, so I could recognize
Glenda
who was
Jackson,
who.
woo!
Glenda Jackson,
Who I love.
God bless her. And so I did enjoy this film, and I loved the premise of it, and I liked every once in a while how the inmates got a little excited, and then the director or whoever would have to, or the staff would have to step in and go, calm down. I like that.
See, I couldn't quite go there because it just felt it's a play based on a play. It's a play within a play, and it looks like a play, and it's filmed like it's another one of these. And I looked Peter Brooks up, and he's done a bunch of plays, King Lear, etc. And it didn't have that cinematic feeling that I would have liked to have seen. I kept thinking, I wonder about
I
that
didn't mind the
Marquis
look
de
of
Sade
it.
movie with Jeffrey Rush. Did they talk? I think they showed a little bit. I was kept thinking about other portrayals of that character, and so I couldn't quite get there with that. There was some interest, in the characters and the way they're portrayed, but I was so lost for parts of it too. I felt like unless you knew the history, you
had to
weren't going
look
to
it
know.
up. I had
I was
to
like,
do
I'm
some
either
reading.
not French enough or enough English enough or not cultured enough or something. So
And a movie that inspires me to read sometimes isn't always the best recommendation. But
Like you had to
did
read about
enjoy
it. Well, you know.
Well, sometimes
could
you
be
have
worse.
to do that, which is
It could be worse.
But we were able to find it. I actually found it on streaming. They had it on streaming on Vudu. Then also you can have it on.
Yeah, you can find it through
on disc.
libraries as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I loved Joker, and Angela did not. Shocker. We both love Manos, so find that movie. We also liked Monsieur Vincent, as well as The Heiress. Angela loved it, a 4-star review. Whew, you've got 4 now for the whole year, I think. And then, of course, Marat Sade. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Watch us on YouTube, as well as at CCTV here in Salem, out in Silverton, and in Corvallis. You can listen to us on KMUZ. We want to thank our amazing crew, our fantastic sponsors, and you, the wonderful viewer at home. As always, have a great day and great movies.